That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The British Constitution provides that taxation and representation shall go together. Therefore, women taxpayers are entitled to vote.
I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Well, hello, Only Humans. Welcome to episode 34 of the Only Human podcast, where we're going to continue our journey into leadership at all levels, both inside and outside of our professional lives. So today's podcast started out with the title, The 5 Biggest Mistakes Leaders Make. But as I was kind of chugging through the preparation, I started to feel like an imposter. So I made it personal. A lot of great leaders like to tell you what they did to become great. Think, Jack Welch, the Welsh Way, 100 other leaders that have written leadership books, famous people. But I thought it might be refreshing to hear a loser talk about their failures, right? So here we go. Today's effort is somewhat painful for me. It's a little cathartic, but it's necessary. And by way of background, I've held some pretty senior positions. I made a little bit of money in my life, and I've won more than a few awards for my leadership. To the outside observer, I might be considered a successful leader, maybe even a good one. But from the inside, oh brother, what a different picture that is entirely. So as I undress in front of you today, metaphorically, of course, I don't want to scare anybody away, I invite you to join me on a journey of introspection to see if there's a few things that you might have not identified in your own leadership, whether that's self-leadership or family leadership or professional leadership, whatever it is. So as we move forward in this series, we'll reflect back, and I'll ask you to reflect back on these areas that we self-identify, right? To develop new ideas on how we can become the best leaders in our own lives, whatever that looks like. So here we go. I'm going to work my 5 biggest mistakes I make in reverse order, right? Counting down number 5, number 4, kind of like Casey Kasem's top 40 list. I'm dating myself there, right? But before we do, I want to start with what's really important. This week, we always have a Blue Thread proverb of the week. And this week, it's one you haven't seen before. At least I don't think so. It's number 28. And it says simply, Socrates was right. Socrates was right. So Socrates was a philosopher in ancient Greece, as most of you know. And he once famously declared that, quote, the unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life is not worth living. So he was asked by one of his students to sum up what all of his philosophy could be reduced to. And he simply replied, know thyself. Know thyself. So this podcast is another attempt to learn a little bit more about who I am and why I do the things I do that derail my best intentions, my compass in life, right? So I invite you to join me on this humbling journey and perhaps make a list of your own, right? So here we go. Number 5 on the top 5 Tony list of leadership mistakes is too many visions poorly communicated. Too many visions poorly communicated. So I'm kind of a freewheeling thinker, not necessarily a good thing for a leader of an organization. I was once told by a really wise guy, actually, I'll tell you his name, Dr. Mark Rosekind, a dear friend and mentor of mine. He said, Tony, most of your ideas are 10 years ahead of the industry. And then he went on to say, and that's not a compliment. So how could you say, well, you're such a forward thinker and that's not a compliment? Because an idea that can't be realized in the near term is not a good idea at all, right? And I would chase these ideas. I chase these visions and I wouldn't communicate them well enough. So maybe in another occupational world, if my career had taken a different path, I might be considered merely, an idea guy sitting in some cubicle inside the innovation department of a large organization. But I'm not, right? I'm an author and the CEO of an international company with teammates and clients dependent on me to guide new solutions from idea to delivery for the real world challenges we face today, not 10 years from now. So I had to learn to roll things out slowly, to do the grunt work, develop and refine ideas to make sure that these things weren't, quote, too advanced, right? And this wasn't easy for me. It isn't easy for me. It's extremely difficult for me to throttle back in that way. I think if you ask people on my team, one of them which has helped me record this in the studio today, they might tell you I'm a bit scatterbrained, right? We even have an acronym that was developed about a decade ago here, ASTI, which stands for another stupid Tony idea, to describe that side of me. But it's not necessarily the ideas that are stupid, I don't think. Right? I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit here. But I think what's stupid is my expectation that without effectively communicating the vision, mapping it to the real world, and explaining it, that we can act on these things as fast as I think them up. The result can be a frustrated, unfocused work group, including me as part of that work group. I'm not the only one. There's real world examples here. In the early days of Microsoft, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, right? Those are the two founders, had different visions of the company's direction. Gates wanted to focus on software. Allen was more interested in the hardware piece of it. And they kind of worked at both visionaries, right? Both 10 years ahead of the industry, at least, in their heads. And they kind of worked their own silos in those areas. They didn't communicate them very well. They never had that unified vision until they did, right? And when they eventually aligned their vision and got over those internal conflicts, they also got over the strategic missteps that they'd been taking. And Microsoft took off, right? And the rest, as they say, is history. So for each one of these mistakes that Tony makes, I want to give you a few corrective actions that I am fully attempting to implement to correct these things. Number one, curb your enthusiasm. Okay? Sometimes, even in the middle of the night, I'll come up with an idea. I'll wake up, I'll grab my phone. I got one of these Samsung 23s with a little pen in it. And I can write on it, right here. Okay. Anyways, I'll wake up in the middle of the night. Sorry for that little diversion. And I'll jot all that stuff down. And then my unconscious mind will think about it. I'll wake up in the morning. I'll look at it and go, oh, I got to share this with the team. Maybe not. Number one, curb your enthusiasm until, number two, you've thought it through. Number two is think it through. Once you've thought it through, and there's a lot of pieces to that, which in a future podcast we'll go into. What does it mean when you get a new idea and you want to think it through from idea to implementation? There's a few steps in there, right? Is it, have you done enough research and analysis to see if it's really new? Secondly, is there anything remotely like it that's going to be a competitor? How is yours different? How is yours the same? All of those things are part of step two, think it through. Step three, if you're going to work on this, phase the project with exit ramps, right? I've got a new idea. I want to run with it. I want to get my team enthused. Okay, here's phase one. Let's investigate it to find out whether this is truly unique or not. Phase two, if we decide that we're going to execute, what are the steps we need to take? What are the resources required, et cetera? The big thing on number three, phase project with exit ramps, is you have to be willing to take the exit ramp. If something comes up that changes it, that changes the marketability, that changes the validity of your initial concept, you got to be able to say, I'm out, right? That's really hard for people that are married to their ideas. Right? Number four, if the timing isn't right and you don't want to give up, save it for later, right? I've got files and files and files here right across my office of things that I never got around to doing that never seemed to be quite right at that moment in time. I remember what most of them are. Every once in a while, I'll go through it with a smile and nostalgia, right? And say, oh, wait, I could use this one now, right? Okay, so that's number 5. Number 4 on my worst leadership traits is impatience, which leads to one of two things, either micromanagement or this, egotistical thing that says, I'll just do it myself, right? Rather than try to come in here and guide all this, I'll just do this. Forget it. I got it, right? So impatience can cause leaders to micromanage their teams, right? Or take more tasks on themselves, which really is dismissive to the team. And it undermines their autonomy and their development, and maybe even the quality of their work. If they always know you're going to look at everything they do in minute detail, then screw it. Why should I check my spelling and punctuation? Because Tony's going to correct it anyway. So impatience is really a damaging one for me. My favorite song, the one when it comes on the radio, I stop everything that's going on and I say, turn it up. And no, it's not Freebird. That's number 2. It's Alabama singing, I'm in a hurry to get things done, right? I rush and rush until life's no fun. Listen to it. Great song. Great song. Here's an example that's going on in my company right now. We know that the whole world is going through a generational handoff, unlike anything that we've ever seen. All the baby boomers are aging out of the fight, and if they invested well, they're going to play golf or go fishing. If not, they're Walmart greeters, right? Not sure where I'm headed yet. But they're being replaced by millennials and Gen Zers and all kinds of cool, highly talented young people. Right? Without the leadership skills or life experience of the people that they're replacing, and oftentimes without the communication, cross-generational communication, to pass along those wisdom, judgment type of things. So I thought to myself, there's a real niche here for some leadership development, especially for people that are just getting into it, right? So I came into work a couple of weeks ago and I said, we're creating a Convergent Leadership Academy, and it's going to be totally unique. It's going to focus on self-leadership, and it's going to focus on the decision, do I even want to be a leader? And we're going to be fair about it. There's going to be pros and there's going to be cons, because once we drive that decision, that's a big decision for people, especially young people right now. And so I was so enthused, and I kind of was trying to get everybody else enthused, and I think I might have got them a little bit enthused. But at any rate, we have pushed forward very, very quickly on it. But thankfully, I have a very good team. And they said, okay, slow down. Let's think this through, right? Let's phase this project with exit ramps, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to see Convergent Leadership Academy coming along soon, but not before it's ready. Thankfully to my team, recognizing my own leadership trait weaknesses. So, I like to use a personal example and then kind of flesh that out with an organizational example. Anybody remember Theranos? Theranos was, they were all over, they were at one time one of the most highly valued companies in the world, and they never even had a product, a minimum viable product. Theranos was that company that said their tagline was a single drop of blood. And they could use a single drop of blood in this high-end analysis gadgets that they had or claimed to have had to be able to do away with all these other medical tests that are going on in the world and be able to get all of these things done with a single drop of blood. Elizabeth Holmes was the face of that, and she often displayed impatience. She was known for that with her team's progress. And so she micromanaged projects. She overrode expert advice. And at least according to a court of law, she fabricated results in order to move forward and keep her funding flowing. Her inability to trust her experts and her team and to delegate effectively contributed to the company's huge, fast, and dramatic collapse. As all these critical issues, who knows? Maybe they were close to actually having something like that, but all those issues were overlooked or poorly handled by their leader. She's probably thinking about those things right now, from her club-fed jail cell. I just looked this up before the podcast, and she is on track to be released from prison in August 2032. So impatience can lead to some bad places. I'm not there yet and not going. So what can we do about impatience as a leadership failure? I like to go back to something that's on a bunch of T-shirts right now. It comes out of, I think, the special ops world, or at least they claim it. They claim a lot of things. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Right? Take your time, get it right the first time. You don't have to do it again. Right? That's the fast part of slow. Take your time, get it right the first time. You don't have to do it again. Impatience is the enemy of that. Right? Number 2, real simple. Build a reasonable project schedule. Right? How long is it going to take me to build a website page for the Convergent Leadership Academy? Do I need a new logo? Should we use a new color scheme? What's the curriculum look like? What is the terminal learning objective? Is it best taught by e-learning, live, or webinar? All of those things can be scheduled, analyzed, and done correctly at a reasonable pace. Number 3, I'm still impatient, so I'm going to push. Right? I'm going to push myself. I'm going to push the team, but not too hard. And I'm going to adjust as necessary. When a new idea or burden or obstacle comes up, we're going to adjust that schedule. But we're going to keep a project schedule, and we're going to move along that schedule. And then number 4, to kind of move away from the micromanagement danger, let your team be a team. No bigfooting in, right? To say, hey, listen, I don't like where this is going. I want you to turn 60 degrees left here and follow this track, right? At the very least, if you're going to step inside of a team function as a leader, as a CEO or the chief learning officer of our company, you know, I feel obligated to say, I have a thought here. It's not written in stone. Please feel free to talk me out of it. But I think maybe we should be doing it this way, right? Even that's dangerous, right? So let your team be a team, no bigfooting. All right, that's number 5. And number 4. Number 3, this could have easily been number 2. Believing too strongly in the power of your idea. Right? Sometimes you get so excited about an idea, you get so personally invested in it, you end up trying to sell something that's invisible to your team and then eventually the public, right? So leaders like me that are kind of free thinkers can sometimes become so enamored with an idea they overlook the practicalities and they push forward without sufficient analysis, validation. And when you do that, you're wasting time. When you're wasting time, you're wasting money and you're wasting energy, right? Contrary to the movie, I'm going to quote a couple movies here. What's the tagline in the movie Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner? If you build it, they will come, right? Whispered from the corn stalks, if you build it, they will come. Well, here's the real world. If you build it, they may not come, right? So that's one movie. The other one that I absolutely love, it's Oscar-winning movie too, Little Miss Sunshine. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. Absolutely the funnest movie you'll ever see in your life. But the father I really identify with. He's played to perfection by Greg Kinnear. And he was a motivational speaker. I think his name was Richard, who motivated absolutely no one. He kept saying, if they just apply my 6 steps to effective leadership, this would have not been a problem. But he's just not very motivational. He doesn't even motivate his own family. He's kind of along for the ride, and it's a very bumpy ride. Little Miss Sunshine, check it out. Yet he persisted in his failed beliefs, right? And he ended up stumbling through life as it occurred around him, right? Not shaped by him, for sure. Here's another organizational example from the past. Anybody remember the Segway? I mean, they're still kind of out there. You can go to, like, I think Washington, D.C. or any of these touristy areas, and you can get a Segway tour where you stand on this thing and it'll drive on 2 wheels, get some little handlebars. Well, it was launched back in 2001, and it was touted as a revolutionary transportation device. We were all going to be commuting to work on them. It was electric. It was green. It was going to be, everybody was going to be riding a Segway. Right? And the hype was, I mean, to where I actually thought maybe I should get one of these things, right? But there was a lot of things wrong with that. They didn't adequately consider the market demand or the practical obstacles to everybody riding these things, right? And so the Segway failed to adopt mass adoption like they promised it was going to quickly. And rather than stair step it up, they went all in. And it resulted in huge financial losses because they overestimated the market potential and they didn't give themselves an opportunity to have those off ramps. That's not the only example like that. We're going to come to another one here, I believe on number 2 of the Tony Greatest Hits. But there's still some things going on with me personally in that particular regard. I have this thought. It came to me in 2020 during COVID that there needed to be a mental conditioning program for people that hadn't quite yet reached the point where they needed to seek professional help. And I started writing this book called Armored Knight. Many of you have heard me talk about it. You've seen me actually give some of the training. It's, cognitive health, emotional health, spiritual health, behavioral health, all based on a purpose. An armored knight riding through the world. The knight is you, and the armor is the world around you, the network, the support you have. And it's really, I think, a cool, important, useful, practical way of letting us all achieve better mental health. And I was sure the whole world was going to see it that way, except the whole world didn't see it that way. They said, isn't that the job of clinical psychologists and psychiatrists? Isn't that something that maybe you don't need to be putting your foot in here, because who made you a mental health expert? And, like so many things, because I struggle with mental health issues like many of you, I look at it from that standpoint. What can I do to achieve better wellness and all that? So I came up with this, and I was on fire for it. I was absolutely on fire for it. But the world didn't appear to be ready for it yet. So all of that to lead into what can we do when we have a breakthrough idea that we may believe strongly, perhaps too strongly about, that potentially could derail other important work. So 5 little bullets here I've got for you. First, tie your idea to the real world first, right? Is it ready for the idea, or are you 10 years in front? In which case the world's not ready and therefore you're not ready. The second, see the roadblocks in competition. I thought that, clinical psychologists and psychiatrists would see what I was doing as like, oh yeah, this is perfect. Mental wellness for all. You go, Tony. Instead, it was like, hey, you're in our turf, get out of it. Right? And it remains that way. I didn't see that coming. Which leads us to number 3 on what you can do about this. Try to merge your new idea into existing paradigms. Now, I hate that word. It's overused, but it's perfect for this. Right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take this mental health model and merge it into other types of human factors training. Right? We're calling these models fusion for obvious reasons. You bring 2 things together and you get more power out of both. Number 4 reflects back to an earlier one. When you've got an exit ramp, it's not an exit ramp forever, right? Know when to take your idea and put it on the shelf and let it marinate for a while until either the world is ready or you are ready to map it to something the world is ready for. Number 5, I almost didn't put this one down because it literally harkens back to the whole problem I have. And number 5 is keep pushing anyway on this lonely, uphill, unappreciated fight, because it's worth it. There are some things we believe in so strongly that to let go of them is to let go a piece of ourselves. And right now, that's where I'm at with this mental health thing. If I have to do it by myself, uphill, standing on a corner saying I will share my mental health ideas for food, man, I'm going to do that, right? Because that's how important it is to me. All right, so we've been through 3 of them. We're on to number 2 of Tony's worst leadership mistakes. Keeping one eye on the clock here, we're gonna finish this up inside our 30-minute limit. I promise you. Number 2 is failure to finish. I've got too many branches and sequels on all of the things that I'm working on. Right? I'm writing books. I'm contributing editor to magazines. I'm trying to run a company. I'm trying to do a lot of things, run a ranch and be a husband and all those things. So when you've got too many branches and sequels in your life, instead of doing one thing till it's finished, right, it can build up to be an insurmountable list of unfinished things, right? You start counting the days till you die, saying what's going to be on that list when I'm dead. Right now, I got 3 unfinished books on my laptop. I got a couple of second editions that need to be finished. I don't even want to begin on listing all the unfinished products I have here around the ranch. But I'm not the only one with this challenge, right? I am not the only one with this challenge. I told you I was going to come back to another one of these segue things. How many remember 2013 when Google launched Google Glass, right? High expectations, they were going to revolutionize wearable technology. But rather than getting a minimum viable product out there with a core product and addressing the user feedback, they went all in, right? They branched into all kinds of experimental features and applications without ever solving the main usability and privacy concerns. These things were hard to operate and they didn't protect your privacy. So this led to a fragmented product development process. And while my frustrations are just the frustrations of one and maybe a little bit of financial impact on my company, for Google, it was a loss of millions, perhaps billions of dollars, right? No one adopted Google Glass. And in 2015, after only 2 years and a lot of money, Google halted the sale of their initial version of this. Now, I suspect we're going to see them back, right? But had they finished and perfected that core product before trying to expand all these features, we might all be wearing them today. I don't know. So what can we do to fight back against this? First of all, when you've got a lot of things going on, prioritize which ones are the most important, which ones are the most urgent, and get started, right? Schedule tasks across various projects to move them all forward and not leave any in the dust. That's a big task, and sometimes it takes away from your attention on actually one of the tasks, but prioritization and scheduling are huge if you're not going to get caught up and just overwhelmed in the bow wave of undone things. When you get close to finishing, when you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's when you pull all your focus in, you push through to check something off the list, right? That's when you stop fighting a multi-front war and come in and saying, this one I'm finishing. Speaking of finishing, commit to finishing strong, not exhausted. I used to grade a lot of term papers when I was a college professor, and you could tell those that said, okay, it's midnight, I've just got to finish this, blah, 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 and it ended with a whimper. You could tell those that listened to some of the things I taught them about writing and say, just before you finish, put that down and do that, finish that final paragraph, that conclusion in the morning, fresh, finish strong. I'll be able to tell half a grade higher guaranteed. And then finally, when you do finish something, celebrate it. Celebrate it. So those are ways to overcome that failure to finish. All right. My number 1 leadership mistake. Ready? I've been saving this one. I'm going to give it to you. You're going to hate me for this. Right after 1 minute and a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever finished the latest bestseller on habits or personal performance and asked, yeah, okay, but how? All the improvements you visualize while reading the books require one thing to achieve in your own life: deliberate practice, a new way of focusing attention inside the routine to drive consistent improvement with every experience. Focused on getting the biggest impact from your career development opportunities, the Deliberate Practice of Professionalism course from Convergent Performance teaches you the steps and requirements to achieve improvement and mastery of your targets. Discover how deliberate practice can springboard your improvement efforts, no matter what they might be or your current skill level. Join us on our website at convergentperformance.com and click the link for e-learning to sign up for this exciting program today.
All right, here we go. What is Tony Kern's number one leadership failure? It harkens to everything you've heard before. Too many irons in the fire, not enough hours in the day, leads me to inevitable, predictable cycles of burnout. I have this constant thought in the back of my head that I can work harder and I can work longer just for a little bit to push this project through completion. You know, I used to joke a lot about, you know, if I could squeeze a little bit more productivity out of those hours between midnight and 3 a.m., I could finish a lot more stuff. Now that sounds like a joke. It's not a joke anymore. I found myself almost like I was in college, up late, sleepless nights, getting up, working, trying to go back to sleep. As the unfinished things pile up, it takes a toll on me. Less exercise, grabbing a snack instead of eating a decent meal, not being able to sleep at night due to the stress. Yet my drive to complete things, important things, is still a haunting presence, even though I know it's a self-defeating behavior. And you know what? I'm not the only person like this. Not to compare myself to who my idol is, but I'm going to do it anyway. Elon Musk is known for all kinds of ambitious ventures, right, across multiple industries. He's the CEO of Tesla, Neuralink, where they're going to put things in our brain. They already have with some people. The Boring Company, which is boring tunnels underneath things with these cool machines. SpaceX. His schedule is famously packed, right? There's a lot of reports out there that he works a standard 80 to 100 hour week. Okay? He's hands-on in a lot of things, and his deep involvement in both the technical, the operational, and the strategic details of the companies, I mean, showcase how good he is, right? But also the immense pressure he places on himself. And that relentless work ethic can only end in one way, right? Significant achievements to be sure, but also episodes of burnout. 2018, during a particularly stressful period for Tesla, Musk admitted in a New York Times interview that he was working 120-hour weeks and relying on Ambien to get any sleep. First of all, anybody that's ever taken Ambien, it's horrible. Sorry, drug company. You don't actually sleep. You just forget you're not sleeping. It just sort of, I don't know. It's not good. He described this period as excruciating and said it took a toll on his health and his well-being. I mean, when you reach that level of stress and overcommitment, your decisions get poor, your behaviors get poorer. You know, he was throwing around controversial tweets that resulted in him being sued and had financial repercussions at Tesla and all sorts of other stuff. So anyways, I'm not the only one. And maybe there's a few of you out there that suffer from the same sort of idea that if you just worked a little bit longer and harder, you can make this happen. So what can we do? What can we do to overcome this self-defeating behavior? Number one, establish normal workday boundaries, right? I'm never going to be an 8 to 5 guy, but I can be a 7 to 7 guy. I'm okay with 12-hour days, right? Even a few 16-hour ones when necessary. But if I don't have some boundaries, that becomes every day for me. Number two, this is a pretty insightful one. Make and keep some outside commitments. I coach Little League, and I'm frequently having to shut down my computer and drive like hell to some baseball field or little gym for practice or a game. Literally every time I have to go, I say, damn it, you know, I just need another hour on this task. But every time I go, I feel better. And afterwards, I do better work the next day. And then number three, and the last little bit of guidance for this podcast, some old Stephen Covey wisdom, sharpen the saw, right? It shifts your mindset, right? Getting a workout is not time away from work. Doing some research and reading is not time away from work because it means you'll be getting things done more efficiently when you return to work. When you stop feeling guilty is when you realize that sharpening the saw, you know, shutting off the computer, do some relaxation, getting a workout, having a good meal, watching a funny movie, that's work, right? It's a sick way to look at it. It's work because it's going to make you sharper and more efficient to get the work done that you need to get done. All right, so that's it. That's Tony's top 5. Except I have a couple of final thoughts, like always. One of my favorite quotes is, your compass can't help you if your map's wrong, right? And that sort of perfectly encapsulates the critical mistakes I make. Even with the right intentions, I want to do great stuff for the world. And I want to do great stuff for my clients and my company and my family. Even with the right intentions, that's my compass, right? My map is wrong. By poorly communicating a wide variety of visions, impatience that can lead to micromanagement and bigfooting into my teams, blind belief in unproven ideas, spreading my focus way too thin across multiple initiatives, taking on too many projects, which is poor self-leadership because it can lead to confusion and burnout, right? I clearly need to change my map if I'm going to improve from this knowledge that I just shared with you today. And I am working on it. I promise you that. Hopefully this has given you a chance to look at your own compass and your own map and maybe avoid some of the getting lost in the woods moments that I've experienced that led to me being able to share these things with you. At the end of the day, we all have good intentions and we all want them to be achievable in our lives for the ones we love and for ourselves. So until next time, keep getting better in all the ways that matter to you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you soon.